It's always a pleasure to come back to ISB, even if it means taking a 6 o'clock in the morning flight on a Saturday. But we are here. It's a good day to be here. I want to thank ISB to invite us and set the context for today's workshop. But before I move into the main part of the presentation, I would like to just take 2 minutes to introduce the Parthenon Group and who we are, and that would kind of tell you why we are here today and why we have been invited in this forum. So, not to spend too much time on this, Parthenon Group is a strategic advisory firm. We were founded in 1991. We are one of the youngest strategic advisory firms. We have about 200 people, 4 offices. The youngest one is the Mumbai office where I work at. In fact, we have had a very close relationship with ISB because we started recruiting from ISB since then. Even before our telephone lines were installed, we came to campus and recruited people. We consult across sectors. So we have our corporate advisory where we work across automotive, financial services, industrial products. You see some names like Mahindra, Kalyani Group. They're all our clients in India. We consult a lot to private equity firms, help them in strategy formulation for their portfolio companies or for diligence of assets, etc. But I think most relevant to our today's discussion and why we are here is our education practice. Parthenon is the only strategic advisory firm to have a dedicated education practice for the last 19 years. And during this period of time, we have gained a lot of experience working with a variety of client types. So we work with organizations and foundations. So like for example, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which has got the largest education endowment in the United States, in fact, in the world. We work with governments. We work a lot with the public school systems or the vocational training policy setting or higher education, both in the Western part as well as in Asia. And then, of course, we work with for-profit companies or commercial ventures as well. So we cover a huge range of activities. And in terms of our experience and the depth of knowledge, all the countries you see marked in green are all places where Parthenon has done an on-the-ground project in the last 12 months in the education sector. So these are all education on-the-ground projects. So we have gathered a lot of knowledge. Well, every time we go into a market, it may be new for us. So we go in as students, very much like you. But then we understand the market, and we have now we are at a stage that we know what's happening around the world, whether it's in K-12, whether it's in vocational training, and we know what are the we've gained understanding of what are the parameters or what are the dynamics of each of the markets and how you can leverage them best to suit to a certain condition, maybe in India. In terms, I was talking about the different sectors. If you look at our practices across education sub-verticals, either it's pre-K to vocational training. In fact, we work with the largest or the most profitable or the most prestigious companies in each of these verticals. So KinderCare is the largest pre-K company in the world. They are our clients. Cognita is the world's largest K through 12 company in the world. They are our clients. We wrote the business plan for them. Laureate, which is the largest international private higher education company for profit. We wrote their business plan and we continue to work with them. Close to home, we have Manipal. Manipal has been a long-running client for us. Hari is here. We have worked with Hari as well in the past. And in vocational training specifically, we have worked with both Corinthian and BPP, the world's 2 largest vocational training companies. And we continue to work with them even now as they think about India and how to look at India and what their plan for Asia in general are. So, I mean, just not too much, just a background, introduce Parthenon, because I know that sometimes we walk into a conference like this, people haven't heard about Parthenon and they think it's a shipping company and they're like, what are they doing in an education conference? They just to give you a brief background. So, let's come to the point. Let's come to today's discussion, and what I want to talk about are just 3 points, and they gel very well with what Nimesh just spoke about regarding what needs to be done. And the 3 points that I'm going to highlight are very practical points for anyone who's thinking about a scalable solution in the vocational training space in India. With very, very, very practical points. So let's just begin with some examples of other companies which have scaled up in this sector. So you have examples like NIIT, about 450 crores of revenue. They're market leader, undoubtedly. They're in the IT vertical. Next is Veta, which is an English language training company. And they are a tenth of the size of NIIT and a tenth of the market share of their vertical as well. And then, of course, you have that's a random example of Javed Habib, again, one of the leading hair beauty services training certification providers, and they're much smaller, about 6 crore rupees. So the question is, how is it that each of these companies, they're all leaders in their verticals, but then why is it that NIIT is so big? And they have managed to take about 40% of their market and maybe about 25% in enrollment terms. But Veta or Hero Mind, they are actually stuck at a much lower share level. So what's happening? So there are three main things that will govern the scalability of any solution. And that's Parthenon has found this in our experience across working in regions and verticals. And these three things are very simplistic. It's almost like a price into volume kind of situation. So that's what we're talking about. So the first thing is, what is the demand for this training or certification? Now, one is, of course, what governs this demand is how many people are there. And Nimesh very nicely and pictorially represented how many people are there. I'll probably do that in numbers. And then out of them, how many would actually want a certification or training? And what governs that? The second point will be around pricing. How important is pricing? Again, referring back to Nimesh's point, he was talking about financing. He was talking about how can we give people some methods, how they can reduce the cost of the degree or the course for them. And let's think about it, what's important behind that? Why is it so important? And the last point is on profitability, because ultimately any business solution or any solution, whether it's for commercial or not, there has to be an angle of economic sense. So what does that drive? And that's driven by center scalability. So everywhere you open your network, if at center level is not economically viable, your network will fail. So those are the 3 points that I'm going to highlight. So let's start with the demand side. Let's start with employability. Nimesh put the fantastic picture of all the people in our country. I just counted them and I put them in numbers. So there are about 430 odd million people in the workforce, and just took a few sectors out of it. So it's not that these are all the people that are in vocational training, but if you take, say, the big chunk, the services, where a lot of these training and certification is applicable, if you take these sectors, and there are about 75 million people across skill categories. So the ones in the dark blue are the ones which are more relevant for vocational training and certification. They are the very basic skills or skill level 1 kind of jobs. So they are the ones who are actually in need of this vocational training. And it's a huge number. Even out of 675 million, you take 60% of that. That's a large number. You're talking about 50 million people here. That's a large number. And there's a lot of growth. So these sectors are growing phenomenally. Anywhere the employment in these sectors, in these kind of jobs, are growing at anywhere between 7 to 11%, depending on which sector you're taking. So a lot of jobs getting added in this sector. So there's a base is large, yes. So there's a lot of base demand. The question is, how many of them will actually end up taking or need a training or certification or pay for it? It's either by themselves or somebody else. So let's step back and think about this. What's the penetration of vocational training, and where does India compare? So India's there in the middle at 4%, very similar to Malaysia and Vietnam. China is at 11%, Thailand is at 12%, and UK, which is a developed country, is the gold standard, I would say, is 25%. Everybody would want to be like them. Let's understand, why is China at 11%? The vocational training market in China is predominantly driven by the fact that if you want a job in a state company, a state-run company, you have to have a certificate or a training of some sort. So it is mandated by the government. And if you show up with a certificate which is at a higher level than your old one, then you actually get a pay increase. So you get higher pay because of that. In Thailand, there is no such mandate, but in Thailand, 20% of Thailand's GDP is run by hospitality and by computer hardware. Both of these sectors in Thailand require certification. Computer hardware is almost like, let's think about IT, NIIT, huge market, they have been able to create that thing. Same phenomenon. UK is actually is very interesting. It's a mixture of all things. The government requires certification for almost every job. The industry requires certification for every single job, and they have set parameters. And even insurance companies require certification for anything. So for example, if your plumbing gets broken in the house and you need to get it fixed, you apply for the in UK they have home insurance, and you apply for the insurance reimbursement, you will not get it unless your plumbing work has been done by a certified plumber. As simple as that. So the regulatory environment is such that it promotes certification, it promotes need for training. So what's the takeaway? What have we learned from this? And it's again coming back to what Nimesh very aptly pointed it out, is that wherever there is involvement of the government or the industry which mandates training or certification, plus or either or, the training or certification leads to a direct increase in your pay. That is where vocational training and certification becomes successful. That's where the penetration increases. That's where people would want to go for it. So yes, there are a lot of people in the workforce, but how many of them would actually need it is the question. And I mean, this is just some more detail on UK, what happened in UK. How did they become, not too long ago, early 2000, they were at the same level as Thailand and China. They were about 10%. In 2001, the Learning and Skills Council was incorporated in the UK. And what they did was they told third-party operators like City and Guilds, and they said that, look, your job is to certify everyone based on certain parameters. So you go, you test them, you certify them. And they would get for every certificate, you were paid a specific amount. And that basically jump-started the whole penetration of vocational training in UK. And that's now become a part and parcel of skilling and employability in that country. So you can see how quickly, once that the council was incorporated, they set down the parameters, they hired companies to do the certification, and zoom, it almost doubled it over a period of 5 years. So let's come to the second aspect, that's pricing. Now, vocational training, it is important to know what the function of pricing is. When students enroll for a course, a vocational course, they are always looking for a payback of their course. It's not very different from when you say, okay, I've come to ISB, I have paid 20 lakh rupees in fees or living expenses, so I expect a certain level of job. You know, it has to pay me so much for all the money that I put in. So it's not like an exact mathematical equation, we all know that, but it's more like a mental math kind of thing that you do. For vocational training courses, this math revolves somewhere in the 2 to 3 month period. So if I enroll in a course and I'm paying 10,000 rupees for it, I expect that my salary will be my monthly salary will be enough to get a payback anywhere between 2 to 3 months. So that's what sets your pricing level. What does obviously that depend upon? It depends upon your blue collar wages, because predominantly the kind of jobs that you're looking at for vocational training, they are blue collar jobs. Now, just let's think back about NIIT, the guy who really scaled up big. NIIT jobs are not blue collar jobs. They can charge higher for their vocational training courses because the kind of jobs that students get after that are also paying higher. So that's the big difference there. The second thing is how long your course should be. So now we are thinking about solutions. We're very practical. Okay, now I've set my fees, but how long should the course be? Now, from the student's perspective, he is thinking about how short can the time be so I can minimize my lost earnings. You're talking about people who go for construction or plumbing or electrical carpentry. They're saying if 3 months or 4 months I'm sitting in a classroom and not earning, that is all lost earning for me. So how can I minimize that timeline? So your courses should be shorter. So I mean, one very good example of this is India Skills. So India Skills offers courses for 3 or 4 months duration, which ITIs normally offer in a 1.5 year duration. So that's the value add that a more, you can say, organized and a better curriculum can offer. So you minimize the lost earnings. From a business or a model point of view, it has other implications as well. You're talking about shorter student lifetime, therefore more student churn. You're talking about more marketing efforts, year-round drives. You're talking about managing your cash flow. So it has its upsides and it has its downsides. And the last point was on center scale and basically which governs your profitability. And the one phenomena that defines vocational training is that fact that it's a catchment area business. So you will not find majority of the students, 75% of the students, this is through, we have done surveys for more than 500-600 students, vocational training students. No more than 75% of this, like about 75% of the students come within 1 hour of where the center is located. And they're not moving from across the country either. So unlike higher education, where I moved from Delhi to Hyderabad for my higher education, and I'm sure a lot of you have moved from different parts of the country. Vocational training doesn't work like that. You have to get to the students. Students are not going to travel for you. You have to get to them, which means that your distribution network should be balanced so that you are covering the right geographies, but at the same time, you're not spreading yourself too thin that your centers can't scale up, or you're not getting enough students enrolled in your centers that you can get your fixed costs back. So that's the balance you need to strike. The second implication of that is on your marketing or your brand building, which is, while franchisors, normally vocational training models are run on a franchisee system. So franchisors, normally what they do is they tend to think about, yeah, okay, you know what, I need to build my brand at the central, national or regional level. What they seldom forget is how they can organize their efforts to do this local marketing, which will get the student in the door. Because you may be doing like national TV and spreading your brand, but that doesn't mean that the guy next door would necessarily hear about you and actually walk in and see that, okay, it meets what I need. So, I mean, these were like the three main factors, very practical things when you're thinking about solutions. I mean, we have operators amongst us, we have regulators amongst us, we have got stakeholders amongst us. And I hope that these points are something that they could also build upon when they're sharing their experience, which is a lot more and more focused, and tell us how they have tackled each of these issues and what solutions they can come up with. Thank you.